Most fathers are living on autopilot. They wake up, they go to work, they come home tired, they doom scroll before they go to bed, then rinse and repeat. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, they're raising a daughter who's watching everything. And what she sees, she normalizes. Here's the hard truth. You're not just tired, dude. You're drifting. There are two types of fathers in this world. There's drifters and designers. Drifters let the day shape them. Designers decide who they're going to be before the day even begins. And every single moment, the tone you use, the repair you avoid, the phone you don't put down, you are reinforcing one identity or the other. And the question isn't whether you're a good dad, man. The question is, are you the architect designing your life? Designing your fatherhood? Are you the architect designing the relationship with your daughter? Or are you simply drifting through it?
Your daughter doesn't need a perfect father. She needs one committed to being better. Welcome to the First Hero podcast, where girl dads break harmful cycles and build impactful legacies.
I am your gracious host, Corey.
And I'm Rich.
And this podcast episode, we're going to cover something really important. We're going to cover the difference between drifting versus designing, specifically when it comes to fatherhood, when fathering your daughter. This is important for fathers because there are invisible forces that are dominating and they are controlling and manipulating our lives, and we have no idea that it's happening.
Yeah, it's a powerful topic, and I think the first thing we got to do is dive into maybe some context and giving the audience a little bit of context into where these concepts come from, because they're not really invented by us.
They're not unique to us.
They're not unique to us, but it is a context and a framework and an understanding and a perspective that comes from something that was written a very long time ago.
A very long time ago.
Documented a very long time ago.
Documented, and it's so dope, dude.
Probably predates even when it was documented in this very well-known book.
Right.
But it's kind of one of those universal laws.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so it was written by Napoleon Hill. So if you know Napoleon Hill, he's the OG thought leader of personal development, right? Mm-hmm. He was the author of Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure you've heard of it. Now, this book that we're referencing drifting from is it was so powerful and so controversial that Napoleon Hill could not publish it during his time, because he knew that the weight and the bombs that he was dropping in this book literally could not be released, because we couldn't, as a society, accept what he was writing about, right? And this is the book was called Outwitting the Devil, right?
Yeah, it probably would have I can imagine at the time, it maybe just would have created so much turbulence in his own life and his potentially even his life being in jeopardy.
Right. And if you hear this, like, you know, it's not a religious book, right? This isn't a religious book. This is more of a mindset development book. But we're not going to get too into it. But essentially, what this book is he's able to shackle the devil, and he's able to interview the devil, right? And get him to confess how he takes over people's minds and souls. Now, again, this isn't religious. The devil is not the classic like horns and pitchfork. He's more of a he personifies negative energy. Right, so he's the negative energy. God's the positive energy.
It's almost a metaphor for the devil on your shoulder, like the good voice in your head, and the bad voice in your head.
Exactly, dude. And his main method for snatching souls is by controlling the mind, right? Specifically through fear and specifically through negative thoughts, which most importantly causes habits inside of an individual, habits which leads to drifting. Now, these are drifting habits. Now, this is very important, because a drifter, in the sense that Napoleon Hill is defining, and that we use, a drifter is a man who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind, external forces, right? He's simply floating through life, never challenging anything, right, Rich?
Exactly. And we all know people like this. And to be honest with you, I think some of us, if we have a certain level of awareness, we experience a spectrum of this as well.
Right. We drift, but being cognizant of it and being aware of it, that's the armor to say, okay, hey, I'm in this cycle, right? Now, a drifter. Why is this important for us girl dads? And this is very important for us girl dads, and this is why we're going to hear the term drifter a lot inside of this podcast. So why is this important? Because once you drift for a time, it becomes a habit, right? And this habit is what Napoleon Hill calls hypnotic rhythm. And hypnotic rhythm is more, it's a hypnosis. And not a hypnosis in the sense that you might be familiar with, but more of like a trance. So have you ever, watched a movie? And in this movie, you're so into this movie that you have no idea what's going on outside. You're just so sucked in, and before you know it, time passes and the movie's over.
Yeah.
Right?
You forget about work. You forget about your
everything.
problems,
Everything's just
you're hungry.
bam. You're so locked in. Well, guess what? This movie is your life, dude. And this life is controlled by this hypnotic rhythm, which is drift. Right? And in the book, the devil says the trick to control 98% of people on this planet is he takes them over during youth, when they're children. Right? Before they can come into possession over their own mind, before they can close the door of manipulation from the devil. Right? This is why this is so important. And he says, how does he do this? How does he take over young children? Well, he says he gets the parents to do this is crazy. I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps. How does he do the dirty work? He doesn't even do the dirty work himself. He gets the parents. He gets you, the father, to do the dirty work for him. He's planted these ideas in you since you were children. You've drifted your whole life. You've created these habits. And then you, the parent, you destroy the habit of thinking. You destroy the habit inside of your daughter to think for herself. Right? He gets you to pass down the habit of drifting to your daughter.
Yep.
Like fucking powerful.
Super, super powerful.
So manipulative.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where that's the premise of exactly what we want to dive in today, because we want to break this open, because this is really the premise of so much of the work that you and I have experienced, the work we've been a witness to other people experiencing, and it's really at the core of the cycle breaker, being a father who being a hero, embodying the first hero concept and being that standard of a father. You have to understand generational cycles. You have to understand this concept of drifting versus designing. Hypnotic rhythm and how to avoid it and what happens, like what it is. And so that's why this episode is going to be such a killer.
Such a banger, dude. Yeah. And you know what? And it's like, why do fathers drift? Like how and why do we get into this? And the devil says in this book specifically, it's easier to repeat than to design. It's easier just to get into these habits that everybody else is doing.
Right.
Than to design your own life. And really what keeps you at bay is fear, the fear of failure, the fear of, and most importantly, the fear of shame and criticism. Going out, Rich, I'm sure you feel this too, like creating this girl dad thing. I'm like, what is everyone going to think about me when I say these opinions? I think of that and I have to break that cycle, right? And what keeps fathers stuck in these drifting cycles is no definiteness of purpose. Hill calls it definiteness of purpose, no goal and no driving factor behind that goal to like really just tackle that goal and get that goal at all costs.
I think my perspective on this is that when Hill talks about definiteness of purpose, I think that's a great term of it in and of itself. And for me, I think how that shows up is like you have to have something that you're willing to fight for.
Yeah,
you have to have, and this is actually do just a quick story from my own life. I had this huge pivot.
Let's hear it.
I had this huge pivot. It's funny. You'll probably remember this, but there was a time in Corey and I's relationship where we spent a lot of time as adolescent, younger teenagers, and even into our 20s where we were doing a lot of questionable stuff together as most boys do.
Hey, this is live in public, bro.
Yeah, exactly. I can't talk about this. But there was a time when a lot of friends, including Corey, distanced themselves from me. And there was a pivot that I made that brought those people back into my life because I had made a big transformation myself and I had completely shed that version of myself and started down a brand new path. And what I don't know that I've shared with you, but it was about the same concept. I had realized that what I was missing for so long was this. It was definiteness of purpose, and I was lost, and I was drifting, and I was using so much of using alcohol and the environments and all the stuff that is available to us, all these external forces that many of us experience as a younger age, to try to combat the pain of not having definiteness of purpose. And there was a moment, I can remember the moment when I recognized that I needed to stand for something. And by stand for something, it meant having definiteness of purpose, having something that you're willing to fight for, something that you stand for.
Purpose.
You have something that you stand firmly for, and you're willing to die on that hill.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I realized I didn't have. And everything up to that point, all the agony and turmoil and everything that I was searching for was because I lacked that one thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everything shifted and I started to identify, okay, what are the things that I can stand firmly on? What are the standards that I can set and hold, hard lines on? Because that rises me.
Yeah. I love that, dude. And that definiteness of purpose has definitely shifted for us both, especially since we become fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've taken that purpose to business and growing personal wealth, now to changing ourselves as a father, holding the mirror up and becoming the best version of ourselves and creating the best environment for ourselves for our daughter to grow and flourish.
Yep.
Right. That's the new definiteness of purpose that we're instilling in ourselves, and also you, the father listening. So to move on, you're most likely drifting if you're listening to this and you're unconscious to it. If you're like most fathers we talk about and coach and mentor, you're drifting, and that's okay because those patterns were inherited. You have inherited them since you were a child, and you have no idea that they're going on, right? That's why we're talking about this. We're creating awareness around it. You're not lazy. You're probably reacting to life rather than shaping it. But here's like some patterns, and we'll go over these quickly that we notice inside of drifters, inside of fathers that are not performing to the best of their standards. They're waking up, they're checking their phone immediately, and they're automatically in reaction mode. They're reacting to everything that's happening in their day. They're not forming their day. They're not saying, this is the day that I'm going to have. They're letting the day dictate them, right? They're going through motions at work. They're coming home exhausted. They're zoning out. They're snapping at their daughter. They're snapping at their wife. Like, don't you know I'm tired? I'm trying to provide. I'm trying to work, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same freaking cycle every day in and day out. And then 10, 15, 20, 30, 70 years goes by, and you're on your deathbed, and you're like, you wake up from this hypnotic rhythm, and you're like, holy shit, dude, what just happened in my life? What happened, dude? You break up from this rhythm, and the devil's like, gotcha. Your soul's mine. Give it up. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It can definitely feel like that. And again, it's not, the devil is just a metaphor for really that point in the future, that point in the future on your deathbed, if you were to look back and realize that you were in default mode, you were in drifting mode most of your life.
Yeah.
And you never pursued anything super significant. You never got a whole lot of big squeeze out of your life. Life was just handed to you. You almost never accomplished or was bold enough to go after any big goals or set a standard high or, be an example of something excellent, not just be an example of something, but something unique, something big, significant.
Because a thought was implanted in your brain that I have to provide, I have to go to work, I have to do all this stuff to take care of my family, which you should do. And
that should be the bare minimum.
That should be the bare minimum. And to that drifting mentality is working a 9 to 5 for me is, working every day, all day, and just not having any connection with my family and doing it in the name of like, hey, I'm just providing for my family. And that thought is not yours. It was implanted in you in the devil. The devil implanted that into you. If we're coming from Hill here, you don't have to be religious to think that. It could be the negative entities, but that thought has been implanted into you, and you took it in, you believed it.
I think at a core too, I think this is an important caveat to what we're talking about with the devil. It's not about it. The concept of the devil is just a pure representation of keeping you from your greatest version.
Right. It's not the devil. It's not the devil like with the horns and a pitchfork. The devil is just this negative forces at play that wants you to drift and not become your best version. Yeah. That's the definition of the devil here with us. And
that we're all in agreement that there is a higher calling for each of us. There is a greater level for each of us. And the only way we can reach it is by identifying the parts of ourselves like this devil, these devilish thoughts that keep us away from that greatness.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You're like, oh, well, I'm too busy. I can't. Like, I'm reaching my. I don't need to be great. It's like, well, dude, go do something nice. How much have you been? Have you served anybody lately? Like, so I can challenge you. Like, you are designed to do great things.
Exactly.
Right? Anyways, the drifter. It's important to note the drifter isn't a bad father, right? It's not bad. It's not bad or good. It just is. He's just an unconscious one. He's living life by default, and he's not living one by design. And his daughter is ultimately learning that is how life is. So if any of this is landing for you, make sure hit the plus symbol, listening to the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, yada, yada, yada. But here's what we have. Rich and I have something really awesome for you. If you're asking yourself, am I a drifter? Am I a designer? Like, what's going on? We have a girl dad quiz type for you. So go take this girl dad quiz type. It'll tell you exactly the type of parent you are or father you are. Right now, it'll tell you your strengths. It'll tell you your blind spots, your weaknesses, and it'll give you a custom roadmap to become the designer to design a relationship with your daughter that will create an environment of flourish and growth and connection that you can't even dream of. So it takes 5 minutes. Links in the show notes. That's our sponsored ad for the show today.
Yeah. Let's talk about what your daughter learns from you as a drifter, if that's where you're at.
Yeah. Let me drink some water. So This is very important because your daughter your daughter doesn't learn from what you say. She learns from what you do and the patterns you are, right? And this is very important. Well, your daughter learns from a drifter, from when you're drifting. Men are most likely, I'm not saying this is absolute, but men are physically present, but emotionally mute, emotionally absent, right? That work and outside external forces other than the relationship and the connection with her is more important, right? More important than connecting with her daughter.
Which is crazy, dude. I mean, if you imagine for any of us fathers listening,
Well,
that's gotta have some pain behind it. And,
right.
And even your daughter's also a witness to that, to the version of you that comes home after work,
Dude,
right?
Yeah.
So if you're stressed out, or if you're carrying a lot of baggage and you're feeling stress and you're telling her, hey, I'm just stressed out. It's been a busy day, and then you're vegging out and disconnecting. That's what she's learning.
Yeah. And she's learning that that's an excuse, that's okay. That's valid.
Exactly. That's valid.
I'm just stressed. I'm tired.
So
and,
that way I can disconnect from my friends,
disconnect
from
reality.
you.
Exactly. And that's okay. That's how life should be. And that's bullshit. That's the devil making you drift, dude. That's the drift right there. It's like that little thought right there.
By the way, that's one, that is that seed that's planted, that stress is an excuse for disconnection. That's one simple step away from then jumping into substances as a way to disconnect because
Alcohol,
it's excused
drugs,
or it's allowed or, anyway.
100%.
Without digressing, yeah.
Seriously, man. Now she's learning what love feels like by how you look at her, by how you connect with her, right? She's learning how love is by how you're interacting and connecting with her.
Yep.
Right? And every day you drift, every day you just chalk up some excuse to why I can disconnect. You're writing a script that she's going to live out in her own life, in her own relationships. Very, very powerful, very important.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. So the flip side of that, right? The designer. What does this look like? Let's kind of paint a clear picture of what this household, what this life, what this intentionality is going to look like. Yeah.
So real quick, it's super simple. It's the exact opposite of the drifter, right? The drifter just simply drifts through life, never challenges anything, never fights or believes in anything. He just kind of floats through life, collects a paycheck, collects a pension, and then just fucking dies, right? To the very extreme to that. Now, the designer is the exact opposite. He lives his life with intentionality, right? And this is an art, and it's a skill that you need to build, and you can build. He doesn't just react, he responds to everything, to what happens in his life, personally, business, and relationally, right? He builds values and he lives his life off of those values. I value connection. I value love. I value family. And he lives by that. And, go ahead. I
was going to add in here another really important thing is that he's doing all of that. And he's also, in the designer mode, you have an end goal in mind and you're working backwards from that, right? So you're aligning all of your decisions based on the outcome and the version of your life that you want.
Right.
Exactly. From a relationship, finances, from a job, from a time perspective, all of that.
Right.
And then you're making decisions backwards.
100%. I was actually going to go there. The designer has an ideal self. This is who I am. When I meet myself at the end of my life, when I go to heaven or whatever, I am the perfect form of whatever that being is of my truest potential. And then I make decisions from that. Right? What would my highest self do? What would my highest and best use in this moment be? Right? I'm making legacy decisions here. Make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and I want to relate something because this kind of came to me as we're talking through this. This whole business, the First Hero Project, is intended to give all of us fathers who align with what a first hero father is an example of.
Yeah.
That is the designer.
Yeah.
That is the designer. That is, you don't have to create it. You can come into this community and be in agreement that from a fathering perspective, we are all here to represent what a first hero to our little girls looks like.
Right.
And that be the standard that we're all making decisions from where we are now to in pursuit of that.
Right. 100%. And you don't have to be perfect, dude.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a perfect father to come into our community.
You're not going to be perfect.
You're not going to be perfect. We're all we're all on this journey together. So don't think you have to be some sort of way or some sort of person to come into our lives and our community. You don't. We have all walks of life in here.
But you got to be willing to attack.
You have to be willing to attack. You have to be willing. The designer asks himself, what kind of father do I want to be? What kind of father do I have to be for my daughter? Right? What is this moment teaching me? What is this moment teaching my daughter? Am I reacting from my past, from past traumas, or am I responding from my whole self and my values? right? What would the man I'm becoming do right now? This stops with me, right? The designer doesn't have it all figured out, man, but he's conscious, he's aware, he's awake, he's authoring his life, he's writing the script of his life instead of inheriting it and just letting it happen. Got it? So let's move on to the awakening, waking up, realizing you're probably listening to this episode like, holy shit, I've been drifting, right? But it's not too late, bro. It is not. It is never too late, whether your daughter's 20, 30, 40, or you have a newborn on the way. It's never too late, right? The moment you recognize the pattern is the moment you can change it. Awareness. So in the book, the devil says the biggest threat is awareness, is learning his tricks.
Mm-hmm. Just being aware of it.
Just being aware. That's all you need to do so you can fight it and understand it, right? And that's what we do here in First Hero is we awaken you to the unconscious, and we make the unconscious conscious, and then we help you break those cycles so that way you're not drifting and you're designing. Make sense? Cool. So let's go ahead and let's do the hot take, dude.
Let's do it.
Let's land the plane. How about that? I got a lot of notes that I want to. I have a lot of notes, but
Corey always has a lot of notes.
I know, dude. I want to go so deep in this stuff.
Trying to keep them short and concise, easy to digest.
Let's do the hot take here, man. So So the hot take is the hot take. If you're new to this podcast, every podcast we have a quote, and in this quote, I give it to Rich, or Rich gives it to me, and we have no idea of the quote that we have or that we're giving to one another, and then we have to give like a hot take of what we think. So we have no idea; it's right off the cuff. Cool. And if you have any suggestions on some quotes, DM them to us.
Yeah, or drop them in the comments or wherever you're watching from. I think YouTube you can comment, but podcast you probably just have to.
Right. Cool. Okay, so here's the quote, and I think it's very relevant to what we've been talking about today. And this is actually my favorite quote, so don't fuck this up, Rich. Okay. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, you will call it fate.
It will direct your life.
It will direct your life.
And you will call it fate.
Yeah, this is unconscious programming, guys, at the fundamental level. This is exactly what we're talking about. And again, Napoleon Hill uses this devil terminology to be a metaphor for this exact thing. But whatever is unconscious is pretty much just a program that is running on autopilot, on repeat, with zero influence or auditing from you. And those programs are instilled in us from an early age. To Hill's point in his book, most of our programming as adults that we're running on are programmed into us as adults. And I think most of us would agree, or as children, most of us would agree. Our parents probably, now that we've reflected on it, most of the time we can say, yeah, they did their best for sure. You know, they probably did their best, and we're willing to give them that credit. But there's also a lot that could have been improved on.
Yep.
And so those programs, if you haven't audited them, if you haven't moved those programs from conscious programs from unconscious programs to conscious programs, then you are drifting. And that is the exact definition of drifting from Napoleon Hill. And that's what we're talking about specifically for you as a father. If your fathering style, if your fathering type, if your fathering protocol is unconscious and it's never been brought to the conscious part of your mind to be audited and evaluated and adjusted, or even just to look at and say, yeah, this still applies based on the concept of the first hero that I want to embody for my little girl. If that connection hasn't been made, then you're drifting. Yeah. And I guarantee you, Corey's made this example before. You're flying a plane from LA to New York, and that drift is 1%. It's 1 degree off every mile that you fly the plane. You're not going to hit New York, dude. You're going to land in friggin' Australia somewhere, and that Australia is going to be the difference between. That difference between New York and Australia is going to be a massive difference in the relationship that you have with your daughter, her outcome, her relationship with happiness, her confidence, her ability to find good partners, good friends, develop deep relationships, and just navigate life with the tools appropriate to be at her greatest self. So that's what I think.
That was a great breakdown quote, dude.
Perfect.
I loved it. No, and it's not Australia. It's actually like Maryland. So
Is it 1 degree is only Maryland?
It's Maryland. Yeah, I mean, still, that's like 400 miles, dude.
Well, dude, you could be drifting a lot.
That's just 1%. That's just 1%, dude.
Like, you could be drifting a whole hell of a lot more than 1%.
Right.
So I guess I'm taking you off the deep end. Like,
like that's, that's like 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so if this hits you, you're one of us. You're one of us. You're a cycle breaker. But I want to leave you with this closing reflection. Your daughter is watching you right now, man. She's watching you. She's not listening to what you say. She's watching what you do. If you're drifting through life, she's learning that from you. So my question to you, again, are you the architect designing your life? Are you teaching your daughter to think for herself, to shut the devil out and think for herself and have autonomy and agency for herself? Are you teaching her to lead herself, or are you just drifting and passing that down to her? So if this episode hits you, it's because you're one of us. You're a cycle breaker. You're a man waking up a father who refuses to drift, who now knows what drifting is and says, fuck, screw that. I'm not drifting anymore. If you want to know exactly where you're starting from, again, we have the father type quiz right now. Go take it. It's somewhere in the description. Girl dad quiz to know the compatibility with your daughter and how to become the best father for her. You're not too late, my friend. You're not too late. And just remember, distraction is the enemy. Breaking the cycle is your duty. And legacy, it's the only thing you leave behind. You're just one decision away from becoming the hero and the designer that your daughter deserves. Thank you.